The spotlight felt like sunlight on my skin, warm and life-giving after years of shadows. Behind the heavy velvet curtain, I could hear the murmur of voices. Art critics, collectors, strangers who had come to see my work. My work! The words still felt foreign in my mouth, like speaking a language I'd been forbidden to learn. 3 years of painting in cramped studios, waitressing until my feet bled, living on instant noodles and determination. It had all led to this moment, my first solo exhibition, unbound, hung beyond that curtain like fragments of my soul made visible. My phone buzzed. Mom's name flashed on the screen, and my stomach clenched with the familiar knot of dread that accompanied her calls. I almost let it go to voicemail. This was my moment, the one I dreamed of since I was 7 years old, sketching birds in the margins of my homework. But guilt, that old familiar weight, pressed the answer button. "Claire, you need to come home. Now." Her voice was steel, wrapped in velvet, the tones he'd perfected over decades of bending wills to her own. "Mom, I can't. The exhibition is... Your father collapsed. The doctors aren't sure." Her voice broke with practiced precision. "We need you here. The family needs you." The words hit me like ice water. Dad, with his quiet strength and tired eyes, the one person who'd ever looked at my paintings with something approaching pride, before quickly glancing away, as if catching himself in the act of rebellion. "How bad is it?" I whispered, my free hand gripping the curtain. "Bad enough that you should be here instead of playing artist when your family is falling apart." Playing artist. The phrase landed exactly where she'd aimed it, in that tender place where my confidence lived. Through the curtain, I could hear the gallery owner beginning her introduction, my name floating on the air like a prayer. 2 hours later, I was on a train heading home, watching my dreams shrink in the rear window while my phone buzzed with messages from the gallery. "Where are you? People are asking for the artist. We need to reschedule." I turned off my phone and stared at my reflection in the dark window, seeing not the artist I'd fought to become, but the dutiful daughter I'd never quite managed to stop being. Home looked smaller than I remembered, as if my years away had somehow compressed it into something more contained, more suffocating. The family business, Wellington and Sons Manufacturing, loomed behind the house like a concrete monument to tradition, its windows dark in the evening light. I found Dad in his favorite chair reading the newspaper and looking remarkably healthy for someone on death's door. When he saw me, his face cycled through surprise, confusion, and what might have been guilt. "Claire, what are you doing here?" Before I could answer, Mom appeared in the doorway, her relief too quick and too bright to be entirely about my presence. "Thank God you're here. We have so much to discuss." The emergency unraveled over dinner. Dad's chest pains had been minor, stress-related, the doctor said, but the family business was hemorrhaging money, contracts falling through, the foundation of our century-old legacy cracking like old concrete. "We need fresh leadership," Mom said, cutting her roast with surgical precision. "Your brothers have their divisions, but we need someone to take over operations, someone with vision." My brothers sat on either side of me like bookends. Marcus, the eldest, nodding along with everything Mom said, and David, 2 years older than me, staring at his plate with an expression I couldn't read. "I have a career," I said quietly, "in New York. My exhibition..." "Your hobby isn't going to save 3 generations of family legacy," Mom interrupted. "Art is a luxury, Claire. Family is forever." The word hobby hung in the air like a slap. Every late night, every rejected grant application, every small victory celebrated alone in my studio, reduced to a hobby. "It's not a hobby. It's who I am." "Who you are," she said,
leaning forward with the intensity that had always made me feel like prey, is a Wellington. That comes with responsibilities. Over the following days, the walls closed in incrementally. Mom scheduled meetings with lawyers, accountants, department heads. She spoke about my transition as if it was already decided, showing me spreadsheets and contracts while my phone filled with increasingly frantic messages from my gallery, my agent, my life. Marcus cornered me in the kitchen on the third day. "Just do it, Claire. It's not that bad once you accept it." Accept what? Giving up everything I've worked for? He shrugged, the gesture of a man who'd made his peace with surrender long ago. We all had dreams. I wanted to be a marine biologist, but this is bigger than what we want. That night, David knocked on my childhood bedroom door. My old room, with its faded floral wallpaper and shelves of participation trophies, evidence of a childhood spent trying to excel at things that didn't matter to me. "I need to tell you something," he said, closing the door behind him. "I tried to leave once, right after college, had a job offer in California, teaching position at a good school. I'd never known this. David, who'd always seemed content with his role in the family machinery. What happened? Dad had his first heart attack. Mild one, but Mom made it sound like the end of the world. By the time I realized I'd been manipulated, I was already knee-deep in quarterly reports and employee reviews." He looked at me with something like desperation. "Don't let them do you what they did to me. What I let them do to me. Then help me fight them." He shook his head, already retreating. "I can't. I have a wife now, kids to think about, but you're still free. Stay free, Claire." The next evening, the family gathered for dinner like generals planning a war I'd already lost. Mom had prepared my favorite meal, another manipulation, coding control in the familiar flavors of childhood. "We've prepared an offer," Dad said, sliding a folder across the table. "Generous salary, company car, full benefits. You'd be running the creative division, marketing, design, client relations. You could still do art, just practical art." Practical art. Like practical dreams or practical love. Contradictions that revealed how little they understood about the thing they were asking me to kill. "I don't want your job," I said quietly. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Want?" Mom's voice was sharp as winter wind. "This isn't about want, Claire. This is about duty, about family, about not being selfish enough to let everything your grandfather built crumble because you want to play with paint. I don't want to play with paint. I want to be an artist. I am an artist." "Artists," she said, investing the word with all the venom she could muster, "don't put food on the table when their parents are old and need care. Artists don't preserve family legacies. Artists are selfish children who never learned to grow up." Something inside me cracked. Not broke, but cracked, like ice beginning to thaw. All my life, I'd absorbed her words like gospel, let them shape my understanding of my own worth. But sitting in that dining room, watching her try to dissect my dreams with surgical precision, I realized something profound. She was wrong. "I need to think," I said, standing up from the table. "There's nothing to think about," Dad said, his voice carrying an edge I'd rarely heard. "You're either family or you're not. If you walk away from this, don't expect to come running back when your art career fails." The ultimatum hung in the air like smoke. Choose us or choose yourself. Choose security or choose truth. Choose the cage or choose the sky. I looked around the table at these people who'd raised me, loved me in their own suffocating way, and realized that love without respect for who I actually wasn't love at all. It was possession. I packed that night in the dark, moving through my childhood room like a thief stealing my own life back. Every item I folded into my suitcase felt like a small act of rebellion.
The sketchbook I'd hidden under my mattress, the acceptance letter from art school I'd kept like a talisman, the photo of my first painting sale. Mom found me in the morning, sitting at the kitchen table with my bags by the door. "You can't be serious." Her voice was smaller now, more human. For a moment, I saw past the manipulation to the woman who genuinely believed she was protecting me from a world she didn't understand. "I am serious. I'm going back to New York, to my life." "Your life?" She sat across from me, reaching for my hands. I pulled them back. "Claire, honey, you're throwing away security, family, everything that matters. For what? So you can struggle and starve and hope strangers like your pictures? So I can be who I actually am instead of who you want me to be." Tears gathered in her eyes, real ones this time, not the practiced performance of manipulation. "We love you. Everything we've done has been because we love you." "No," I said, standing up and shouldering my bag. "You love the idea of me that you created. You love the version of me that fits into your plans. But you don't love me. You don't even know me. If you walk out that door, I know. I'll be cut off, disowned, written out of the family story." I looked back at her one last time. "But I'll be free." The train ride back to New York felt different this time. Not like retreat, but like advance, like moving toward something instead of running from it. My phone stayed off until I reached the city, and when I finally turned it on, there were dozens of messages. The gallery had rescheduled the exhibition, my agent had fielded inquiries, and somehow, impossibly, my absence had created more buzz than my presence might have. 3 months later, Unbound opened to a packed gallery. The paintings looked different now, sharper somehow, more honest. There was new work too, pieces I'd created in the aftermath of my choice, canvases that pulsed with the energy of someone who'd finally stopped apologizing for existing. I was talking to a collector about the largest piece, a painting I'd titled Inheritance, when I felt someone approach from behind. David stood at the edge of the crowd, looking uncomfortable in his business suit, but smiling with genuine pride. He pressed a folded paper into my hand without speaking, then melted back into the crowd before I could react. Later in the quiet of my studio, I unfolded his note. "Seeing you choose yourself gave me the courage to make my own choice. I'm leaving the company. Mom's furious, but Sarah and I are moving to Portland where I can teach. Thank you for showing me that walking away isn't abandonment. It's coming home to who we're supposed to be." I tucked the note into my sketchbook and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights that had welcomed me back like old friends. Somewhere out there, David was probably packing his own bags, making his own journey toward authenticity. A year later, I received another unexpected visitor. A teenage girl, maybe 16, stood in front of my latest painting with the kind of hunger I recognized, the look of someone starving for permission to be themselves. "Are you really the artist?" she asked when she noticed me watching. "I am." "And how did you know that you were supposed to do this, I mean?" I thought of that dining room, that ultimatum, that moment when I'd chosen myself over the safety of being chosen by others. I didn't know. I just decided that being myself was worth the risk of being alone. She nodded, understanding passing between us like a shared language. When she left, I saw her slip one of my gallery cards into her pocket, a seed, perhaps, that might one day bloom into her own act of rebellion. Standing there in the gallery, surrounded by my work, my truth made visible on canvas and wire, I understood something my mother never would. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's the first honest thing you can do. And sometimes that honesty is the greatest gift you can give. Not just to yourself, but to everyone still trapped in cages of other people's making, waiting for permission to fly.